Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here, and we got a doozy of a humdinger of a video here. So here's the deal before we get into the subject matter of Alex Jones losing his appeal in the Sandy Hook lawsuits that I told you he was going to lose. I told you all he was going to lose. I'm going to break a whole bunch down because there's going to be people mad at me now for talking about Alex Jones. There's going to be people mad at me for talking about Sandy Hook. So, before we get into any of that stuff, I'm going to explain to you where I'm going to thank Alex Jones. For those that do not know, Alex Jones produced Loose Change Final Cut, shirt I'm wearing here. He produced Fabled Enemies, and he also produced my film, Invisible Empire. He also gave me a show. I was the first person to have my own web show on the regular called The Infowars. It was at a time when I was his regular host. I spent a lot of time with Alex Jones, not only inside the office, but outside the office. In many regards, Alex Jones mentored me. I've been extremely forward and honest about that. Now, during the time I was there were things that clearly were troubling to me at some times. But overall, this was an organization that was not about left or right, that went after everybody, that also was on the verge of taking on a lot of the mainstream media, who still had a large foothold at the time of me coming into this organization. 2008, when he produced Fabled Enemies, and I started to host the show, is really where that relationship grew. Now, I specifically remember when he did the Joker Obama thing. I thought that was a little bit over the top. You didn't see me in that video. I don't believe. There might have been one point where maybe I ran some papers in, but everybody was kind of like celebrating that. I was never big on the quote-unquote stunts, okay? I remember when the first iPad came out, Alex Jones did a video where he tortured an iPad, supposedly trying to get attention to, the actual torture of people being a problem. And that's fine. Those things, I get it. They may not be my cup of tea, but I get it. Whatever. I've always, at that point, was a supporter of pretty much everything Infowars had done, other than the fact of saying, listen, I may not agree with this stuff, but overall, I think they do really good work. Now, the organization has grown into a mouthpiece for the Trump administration, period. And now everything is the left and the Chi-Coms. And yes, that bothers me. But there were also things that bothered me after I left along the way, where there was deception, there was dishonesty, and I've called that out. And I think you should be able to. Alex Jones is as big as O'Reilly was, during the run-up to the Iraq War, et cetera, et cetera. These are the levels, so you kind of have to call these things out. I don't think that's me being hateful or negative. And for those that don't know, when I resurrected my channel, okay, some of the first things I did, other than the Dark Overlord and some other things, was that I posted small excerpts of the Sandy Hook deposition with Jones. And we're actually going to play one of those 10-minute excerpts in this video so we can really be accurate about what we're about to talk about, because there is no doubt in my mind he should have lost that lawsuit because he was being dishonest. He was being deceptive. He lied a lot. And I'm going to get into Sandy Hook because I know that's a sensitive subject, but if you really want to see the breakdown of everything I'm about to tell you about Sandy Hook and Alex Jones's deposition, this is a almost 40-minute video I did. You can go check it out on my channel. It may be something that you want to go look at, because I want you to understand I'm going to back up everything I'm about to tell you with a lot of evidence in that video. So for me, Sandy Hook had real questions, right? But not the type of questions that were being pushed by Infowars. In fact, After Sandy Hook, I had contacted them. I was in contact with Aaron Dykes and others, and I sent them information. Now, you can go check that video out. Eventually, about a year after the attacks, when the initial documents came out, much of it blacked out, much of it censored, I went through that stuff. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And I had already kind of worked out a lot of questions about some of the on-scene witnesses, some of the people that were detained, some of the radio protocol of them perhaps chasing suspects that were in a purple van dressed like nuns on their way out to what seemed to be the airport in Danbury, Connecticut. And I know all that stuff sounds wild, but it was real. I never took the position of crisis actors and, no dead kids and all that other stuff. And I thought that was a huge mistake. And love him or hate him, at one point, that quote is not taken out of context. He says synthetic with actors on the air. There's no doubt about that. He also tells everybody that he did deep research into Sandy Hook. He did not do that. 100% he didn't do that. If you watch my video, if you watch this video, there is no doubt. In this video, I predict he's going to lose his lawsuit, and he does. And then he just appealed it, and people thought that he keeps spinning all these things about what the lawsuit is. I encourage you to watch the 3.5-hour deposition if you disagree with me. Please do. These are just small excerpts. So here's the story. He's lost again, all right? And this is it. I really wonder whether or not now everything is going to kind of move towards newswars.com, because I think that this lawsuit is in conjunction with Infowars.com, and I know that it's in the millions, and I'm sure he paid his lawyers a ton. He's going to have to pay for these lawyers. I have no idea how much this is actually going to cost him, but it's going to cost him a ton of money. Expect some money bombs, expect some real moves, and like I said, I wouldn't doubt if News Wars becomes the new Infowars, and the Infowars banner may go away. For instance, now that Paul Joseph Watson has left and does Summit.News, you're seeing or hearing a lot less of a push for PrisonPlanet.com. I'm not sure if PrisonPlanet.tv even gets pushed anymore. It's not like I'm listening to this stuff all the time, but when I have listened to him talk about it, well, you can listen to him in the deposition. That's what I want to go over here. We're going to go over just this small piece. And one of the things he keeps telling his audience, he said on the Joe Rogan podcast, all these things, is that we examined this, and I did deep research here, and I wasn't calling for this, and I wasn't even asking questions. Folks, they're going to show video after they have him look at this, where on the day of, we're talking about hours after this attack, he blatantly says that he needs the audience to go search out clips of him previously talking about them staging a mass shooting. Okay? So, listen, we're going to play this, and I think that this small piece of a 3.5-hour deposition is going to let you know why Alex Jones lost and how he's been deceptive on this level.
I want to go through this affidavit with you in the highlighted part, sentence by sentence. Do you see the pale orange part, which I'm now going to read to you? Plaintiffs claim that I started the controversy and/or conspiracy about Sandy Hook being a hoax. This is not true. I read that correctly?
I need to read the full page, please.
Please take a moment to read it.
Let me just read this, thanks.
So you heard what the gist was. He's going to read the whole page. But basically he's saying that, Alex, you said you're not the one that started the Sandy Hook conspiracy theory. Now, obviously, he had the largest platform that day, and his radio show airs at noon Eastern time. So I think it was midway through the show.
Part you want me to read?
I actually just read it to you and wanted to know if I had read it correctly. Allow me to read it again for you, Mr. Jones. Plaintiffs claim that I started the controversy and/or conspiracy theory about Sandy Hook being a hoax. This is not true. I read that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. The next sentence says, before I ever publicly commented on any issues relating to Sandy Hook, I learned that others with whom I have no affiliation or relationship had already posted articles. Excuse me, Mr. Jones, if you'd like to flip the page. Relationship had already posted articles online making this claim and questioning the events as reported. I read that sentence correctly?
Yes.
So there were a variety of articles and YouTube videos questioning the events that started getting popular in the time period after the shooting. I assume you saw some of those?
Yes.
How long is this are we talking? Are we talking days, weeks, months?
I don't know. I don't want to answer incorrectly. I don't remember the exact times. It was, so I really can't state that time, but I think a month or longer.
So let's just stop there. So basically what's happening here is the lawyer has now got him to read the page, and Jones is denying that he started any kind of quote-unquote conspiracy theory about Sandy Hook. Again, I want to reiterate this. I did a 40-minute video breaking down legitimate questions on Sandy Hook. So I don't want anybody in the comments section thinking, you don't want to ask questions. You just hate Jones. No, listen, there were questions to be asked. He's now stating that all these videos and articles, if you will, questioning Sandy Hook came out before Jones is saying now about a month. He didn't want to be incorrect. He didn't days, weeks. He said about a month before he really started questioning the attacks. Remember, this is a lawsuit, by the way. Okay, so when I saw even this clip among the many things that went on in this 3.5-hour deposition, I knew he was going to lose.
Okay. I remember there was about a month after the shooting, there was a relatively popular YouTube video went viral. Do you recall this video?
There were a lot with 2 million, 10 million. There was a bunch of videos, and it was a firestorm on the internet about it.
Okay. And it was then, when you had saw that you started covering it, started commenting on Sandy Hook.
Objection is to define Sandy Hook. Objection to the floor.
Thank you. You can go ahead and answer, Mr. Jones.
No, I started commenting on Sandy Hook that they would use it to go after our guns, and that the media always hyped up school shootings and was causing copycat events, and that the mainstream media were basically psychic vampires promoting mass shootings so they could blame gun owners and try to take the Second Amendment away, which they pushed to repeal the Second Amendment. So for the first month or so, and again, I can't go back to exact numbers, it was like almost 7 years ago, but we've gone back and looked at some of it, trying to find, it was like at least 3 weeks, 4 weeks or so, and then there was such a firestorm on the internet, it's like, no, this isn't Prozac, this isn't video games, like I was saying, I thought, like other shootings that happened. Mm-hmm. This was, some type of staged event or multiple shooters.
All right, so now I want people to understand what he's saying here. So now he's saying he made a claim on top of a claim. First, he's claiming that it was like a month after all these videos that he started questioning, 3 weeks to a month. I want to be clear, he did say that. But now he's adding in that originally he stated it was psychotropic drugs or some kind of that to do with a crazed shooter. Now, Lanza himself, who I do not give a pass to, okay, was on all sorts of medications. All sorts of medications. There's a lot of questions there. In fact, if you watch that video, let's just minimize that for a minute. Guys, again, after this, please go watch the Alex Jones deposition and deep research. You'll actually see some of the medications he was on in the drawer inside of his house and a lot of things inside of his house because there was a lot of video and photographic evidence regarding Sandy Hook that was released to the public eventually. So going back to this, now we've had Jones say that originally he said, drugged up shooter. You look at Connor Betts, that recent one in Daytona. Think about how quick that was. And that was a drugged up shooter. And we've talked about that. And I predicted that as well. They found Xanax, cocaine, and alcohol in his system. I want to know what other psychotropic drugs he was also on. Because Xanax wasn't it. Okay? I promise you that. I promise you he had a history of more than Xanax. So now he's still spinning and spinning away, and to his own demise.
People in the woods and things like that. So there was a whole range of theories and a big internet debate going on that I then reported on and gave analysis to my opinions.
Correct. Okay.
And I think that's what was weeks after. I can't give the exact number. I immediately, when it happened, said, "Oh, look, another person in a black trench coat, loner on psychotropics that came out, shoot 'em up video games." And I remember being criticized by the video game industry saying, don't you blame video games.
Again, trying to spin everything. I want to make this clear, too. This is something a lot of people don't understand. There was an initial report. You know, I talked about the nuns, people dressed as nuns in the purple van that went over the radio that, you know, were supposedly going towards Danbury, Connecticut. But if you look at the videos, there are what appear to be 2 black hooded sweatshirts outside of the car that Lanza supposedly used. And there was also a report that the shooter was dressed up like clergy when he approached the door. There's also evidence that people were targeted there, as one of the teachers that was killed had her car shot up in the parking lot. All these things are never, ever, ever discussed. And more and more and more. But if you want to see that stuff, you want to see real, hardcore evidence that may challenge your thinking process, I encourage you to do so by watching that video. But let's continue. Now, Jones is really spinning it up here. You know, he wants to get away from this question of, yeah, no, I didn't say anything about Sandy Hook for a month. I certainly didn't question whether it would be a false flag shooting, but like I said, they have video of him that day asking listeners to find him predicting a false flag type event.
What I'm curious about, Mr. Jones, can you flip the page back over again and look at the beginning of the yellow sentence? So, when you say, before I ever publicly commented on any issues relating to Sandy Hook, you saw other stuff going on, right? You mean whether it was staged or not. I mean, in other words, you made some comments about Sandy Hook when it first happened. But in terms about it being a false flag or staged or some sort of hoax event, right, that came later. You're not the one who started that.
Objection as to form.
I know that I didn't start it, and I think it's a boilerplate anytime there's a big public event like Jesse Smollett or babies in incubators in Iraq. A lot of people question, whether it's real. I think President Trump questioned right after he got elected and was first in office whether the attacks on the Jewish cemeteries were being staged. It turned out they were. So I mean, going from memory, I remember looking at it as your standard horrible tragedy of psychotropic drugs, a kid into occult, type stuff like Columbine, shoot 'em up video games. I remember that's where I was going because that's where all the other shootings
Keeps
basically
digging
came
that
from.
hole.
And so I can't specifically. I mean, I'm going from the best of my memory.
Okay. Mr. Jones, I want to show you some video clips of some things you were saying as news broke of Sandy Hook, and in a video that day that you titled "Connecticut School Massacre Looks Like False Flag, Says Witnesses." Can you play the clip day of Sandy Hook?
But get a hold of your cousin when she settles down and get her to talk to us for any other information. We need to know, were there any drills that day or the day before? Does she know anything? Did she have anything about other shooters, or was it that she never saw the shooters?
Well, I had to ask them if it was supposedly to, because they have a lot of security at that school. You have to ring a doorbell in order to get into the school.
Yeah, of course, which is another side of that. It's one of these federal model schools. You've heard me say, look for a big mass shooting at schools. You've heard me. We've got to find the clips the last 2 months. I've probably said it 20 times. So
let me just stop it here. Those questions about the multiple shooter stuff, all that stuff, those are valid questions. I'm not disregarding those kind of questions. But right here he is on the day of pointing towards it being a false flag. Now, I don't necessarily disagree that, once again, we were lied to and that there's something more than just Lanza and there is a possibility of multiple shooters. Again, watch my video. Please watch my video on that. I think those questions do need to be asked. But you can't deny that on the day of, you were basically saying, go find my clips where I say they're going to stage a school shooting. That's a reality. Right there, defamation case lost, in my opinion. So let's continue here.
Don't ever think the globalists that have hijacked this country wouldn't stage something like this. They kill little kids all day, every day. And it's not our government, it's the globalist. And that is an inside job right there, either way you cut it. I bet money that woman was a super liberal. I bet money That's what I said. I said, I bet he's in his 20s, a big video gamer, a trendy. Well, notice it didn't happen the last few years, and now that Obama's coming in with gun control, magically these shootings are popping up. People got to find the clips the last 2 months. I said they are launching attacks. They're getting ready. I can see them warming up with Obama. They've got a bigger majority in the Congress now, in the Senate. They are going to come after our guns, look for mass shootings. And then magically it happens. They are coming. They are coming. They are coming.
Mr. Jones, this is a video where you made comments on issues relating to Sandy Hook, and you put forward a theory that it could be staged by the government to take away our guns, correct?
One objection. It seems like this is a video from watching it that's different pieces put together.
Correct.
Okay, so it's not from, so different things are out of context. Is there any way to get like the whole?
You own the whole video, and it's been produced with Mr. Zip's affidavit.
Okay, but for his purposes, so he's just getting.
If he wants to go watch an entire 4-hour video, I'm not going to have time for that
Marking
now.
has not been produced with Zip's video.
Actually, Connecticut full video has been produced, and it's been in the court. If you want to argue about that and object, you could object at that at the time it's offered. That objection's preserved. You don't have to object to form to that. Mr. Jones, that was a video in which you made statements about Sandy Hook, and in which you said, put forth the theory it could be staged to take away our guns.
No, that's a Media Matters edited. That's a Media Matters edited derivative production.
Let me stop that. Nothing about that was Media Matters. The lawyer's going to tell him that he produced it. Nothing there was taken out of context, in my opinion. He had a 3-hour broadcast that day, possibly 4, right? Because he used to do that extra bonus hour. I don't know how much time he took on that, but I can assure you somewhere there is a digital, at least MP3 of that show. He had every opportunity and should have prepared as he was being sued about Sandy Hook. Probably should have known what he was saying on that day. So, this is just, I know everybody loves, who's his lawyer, Robert Barnes or whatever, but that's a rookie mistake. I just couldn't even believe it. So now he's going to get even more conspiratorial and say that's a Media Matters edited clip. And he keeps talking about, I know he talked to his audience how they were using these clip shows. It's not a clip show. That's the relevant evidence that he is lying in his statement from the first day. Okay? So I don't know what else to say about that.
On that tape?
It's edited.
And that's you talking about, don't think this couldn't be staged. Our government kills little kids all the time. That's you saying those words.
With smart bombs and things. Yes,
Right.
That's edited out of context.
The truth is, Mr. Jones, you were the first person in the world to make the false flag theory about Sandy Hook, and you did it before the bodies were even cold. That's the truth.
No, it's not true.
Form and to the definition. Are we going to have set definitions of the words?
No, you can object to form. Yeah, that's the rule 199. Just object to form.
That's fine.
Mr. Jones, you said in your affidavit that before you commented on any issues relating to Sandy Hook, you saw other things that other people were doing. That affidavit has false statements, doesn't it?
Nope.
So we didn't just see you commenting on issues relating to Sandy Hook?
Let me just stop it. I mean, come on. Look at that face. That's a lie. Of course he was commenting. Now listen, again, our government does kill kids all the time overseas. And listen, they've done horrific things to children in this country. I've talked about and showed you some of the medical experimentation, talked about some of the stuff they did through the Department of Atomic Energy. I've showed you that in I believe it was a Brooklyn hospital, they injected children with, I believe it was, it was, I don't want to misquote it. I've done videos on it, but listen, we have killed children. We do it all the time. We name enemy combatants 16-year-old kids overseas. Do you understand that? I did a whole video recently about Guantanamo Bay, Abu Ghraib, and black sites where children were being sexually abused and raped. Yes, that's all true. However, once again, the idea that Jones didn't say all those things about Sandy Hook on the day of is ridiculous. The idea that Alex Jones did actual deep research himself on Sandy Hook is ridiculous. Okay? Listen, I worked on the inside. I can tell you right now he did not do any type of deep research because he would have not said what he said had he done that. go watch the whole 3.5 hour thing. We're going to finish up in this just little part of the clip. But again, if you want to see a really good breakdown, a 37-minute breakdown of this whole shebango, please go watch that. I'm begging you. But does that look like the face of a man who's telling the truth? Be honest.
That was callers calling it up, and it's heavily edited.
You're going to tell me you watched that video and you weren't commenting on Sandy Hook.
I told you 5 minutes ago before you played it that as a boilerplate of any big public event, whether it's Jussie Smollett or whether it's babies having their brains bashed out in incubators or WMDs, that I upfront questioned it because things from Operation Northwoods and hundreds of declassified real staged events where our government admits that it's staged events, that I always boilerplate say that we need to investigate the news reportage of this and see what's true, because such a long history of governments and corporations and legal groups engaging in fraud. And I said that before you played the clip.
Objection, non-responsive. Mr. Jones, I have a very simple question for you. That video you just saw of you talking, were you talking about Sandy Hook?
The edited pieces were.
What, the pieces that I edited and put together of you speaking.
Believe me,
yeah,
matters.
I edited them. When I edited those pieces together and put them in front of you, was that you on the camera?
I saw Media Matters video of that before. That's not you. You're saying you edited that?
Yeah, I did, Mr. Jones. It's not a.
But you did edit it.
It's not an important deal. I did. Yes, I'm not here to answer questions.
3-second clips together.
Those clips were edited together by me 2 weeks ago.
Oh,
from
okay.
your video.
Why didn't you just play it unedited?
That's, Mr. Jones, I'm not here to answer your questions. You understand you're here because people have sued you and you have 4 hours in which they're to ask you questions. You going to do that for me today?
Yes, I'm answering your questions.
So in that video, yes or no, you were commenting about Sandy Hook?
In the edited video, I was commenting on Sandy Hook.
And there you go. So once again, guys, I mean, I don't know what else to say. I knew I was going to upset some people. I can see the upset comments. I appreciate the super chats, by the way, Bonzilla. But look, I encourage you to go watch the whole deposition. Alex Jones has now lost twice. He's going to pay those lawsuits out. He's not going anywhere. The question is, what kind of a hit is he going to take on this? Again, you want real questions about Sandy Hook. I don't think there's a better recent video than the Alex Jones deposition and deep research. So there it is. I mean, you can hate me for saying what I said, but I back everything I say with actual facts. I saw things over here where I talk about opinions. I certainly do. But I don't accuse parents of lying about their dead children. I don't do defamation. For instance, coming up, we're going to do an amazing breakdown of this recently released university paper on the collapse of World Trade Center Building 7 that eviscerates the NIST report. Now, it was beyond my opinion that the NIST report was a lie. And it was beyond my opinion that the only way a building falls that way is controlled demolition. And I'll put that on the line every day. You know why? Because that's not defamation. That's the truth. That's something that is provable and will be provable and continues to have that barrier of lies torn apart by people who can see obvious things. All right, so that's coming up. We're going to do a big-time deep dive into that. I want to invite people who might be new to this channel to check it out. It's got cutting-edge stuff on Nexium, Epstein, the truth about the McGregor sexual assault, MK Ultra, Bilderberg, and much, much, much more. We hit over 500 videos. We're doing it 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times a day. We got stuff coming from the archives, including what I put out earlier this week, the 9/11 survivor story of Anthony Saltalamacchia. If you want to really see what happened inside the towers, why don't you give that a watch? I think it might be eye-opening to you if you don't know anything about this stuff. That being said, if you like my work, I give it all away for free. It is free to you, me, everybody else. All my documentaries are free over on the channel. Go to my playlist. They're in there. So if you can give me $5, $10, $15, I truly, truly do appreciate it. I love what I do. It's never been about left or right, conservative, liberal, any of that. Okay? It's about right and wrong and confronting the predator class. So with that being said, I will see you all on the flip side.